What's up, y'all? Hey. We are here. My name is Stacey Michelle, and welcome to Stacey Michelle's Corner. I have me a guest today. I am so excited. What's up,
Hey.
Markia? I am excited for her to be here. We are going to talk about something that I think a lot of us all deal with or have dealt with, and that's toxic workplace environments. And we're gonna deep dive into that. But before we do, let me chat with you for a second. How you been?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. How was your week?
My week was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I loved it.
yeah. How did you manage? What did you love about your week? What was so good?
Honestly, lately I've been trying to close to my walk with God. So
Okay.
I love to start my week off or end it going to church and stuff like
Okay,
that.
very
So
good.
I just try to always keep myself in a positive mindset, like no matter what you go through at work. So I love that we're talking about this topic because sometimes, you might face certain situations that are unexpected.
Right.
And, you have to ask God, show me where I'm wrong, keep me grounded so that I can't let, others around me see that they're getting to me. So I loved it. But I had a great work week. We had meetings and things like that, but everything was great.
Very good. And how did you survive this hot weather?
It's crazy because for the last couple of years, my job kind of required me to wear long sleeves, outside and
Okay.
inside, because
Okay.
if you're somebody that care about your skin, which most females do, we don't want stuff all over our arms. So if you're working outside, I just kind of tend to wear long sleeves all week, all year round. So the heat doesn't bother me.
Okay, that's good.
I don't know, but I can manage because it's Georgia. You never know what to
Yeah,
expect.
it's
So
it's it's definitely been hot. You guys. And I just want to give a quick reminder. Um, about the pediatric vehicular heat stroke. Just in case y'all didn't see my last live, and so the CDC does report that an estimate 700 people do die each year from heat related deaths. Now, among that, kids are also dying because they're being kids and pets, but we're going to talk about the kids are being left in the car. But so far in 2024, only 7 children have died being left in a hot car. But we want to make sure that you all do stay aware that this is something that is serious, right? You want to make sure that you're not leaving your child in that back seat, okay? Because what happens is when a child is left in a vehicle and that child's body temperature reaches their core body temperature reaches 104 degrees, that's when the heat stroke begins. And the car can actually get really hot even in 70-degree weather, right? And then a child can actually die when their body temperature reaches 107 degrees. Okay, so we need to make sure that we are checking our back seats. I know I spoke last time on my live where their cars are being equipped with sensors that let you know once you open that back door, before you start your car, you open that back door, the car is notified. And then once you get to your place where you're supposed to, whatever your destination, and you turn the car up, it's going to continue to beep until you check the back seat. So that's good, but that's not in all cars right now. I also learned that there are actually some good Samaritan laws out there now. So if you come across a child or a pet in a hot car, you may be in a state where there's a good Samaritan law in place. And these laws are designed to protect citizens from liability if they break into a car, to rescue a person or pet in distress that is trapped inside. Okay. And these laws are in place to encourage citizens to act without fear or retribution. And this is very critical because minutes can make a difference between life and death for a person or pet trapped in the car. I also found it interesting that currently there are only 25 states that have the Good Samaritan laws. Okay. Which is, I found really amazing. I didn't understand why this is not just nationwide. But if you see on this map, so the states that are in blue, they've already passed the laws. Blue states. Luckily, we're in Georgia. We're a blue state, so Good Samaritan laws also works for if you're with a friend and they overdose, they want you to stay with your friend. But these are also the red states that have previously proposed these laws, but they did not pass. So it is important. And then the white ones are just unknown. So please, please, if you are in any of these states that have red or white, it is important that you contact your local representative, because these laws are important not only to encourage citizens to act in an emergency situation, but also to bring awareness to the dangers of leaving children and others in a hot car. Okay. So just make sure you are checking that back seat. If your car does not have some type of alarming device to let you know. Again, only 7 children have died. 7 is still too many, but at least we're in the half of the year. And hopefully, because they also, like they said, it could be 70 degrees outside and they can still pass away. So let's be alert about that. And I also said, if you are someone who does not want your child for whatever reason, because they do have people who actually leave their child in a car on purpose.
Right.
Before you do that, take your child to the local church, to the local fire station, to a family member or something. Give that child a chance to live. So as we transition into heat and we talk about that, we know that heat can play a major role on adults' mental health. And in extreme heat can just negatively impact your mental health, in numerous ways, from sleep, not being able to sleep, to anxious, feeling overwhelmed, irritable. And then that can also slide into the workplace, what we're going to talk about today. Just want to share a few statistics because, I love to learn. I just love to learn. So I found this online. Bear with me one moment, y'all. So last year, the American Psychology Association conducted a survey and revealed that 19% of workers say their workplace is very or somewhat toxic. And those who reported a toxic workplace were more than 3 times as likely to have said they have experienced harm to their mental health than those who report a healthy workplace. And on this, you can see that overall 19%, and then you can see where their current work environment is and the type of work. So 13% of people that work remote, said that it's I don't know how it can be toxic if you're at home, but
I mean, I can see how it's toxic because you know how, like, if you're frustrated and you're going through something, you know how, like, you might call with an attitude because your your lights might be cut off, or like, something like you might have an expensive bill and it's like, why is it so expensive? Y'all are mischarging me, and they're calling in with an attitude. So it's kind of like I could see where it's toxic because you got to remain professional
while you're at work
on the phone, and stuff like that.
That makes sense. And you could be dealing with, like, when you press mute, you could be still dealing with your kids, especially in the summertime. So I could thank you for clarifying that. I could definitely see that. What else do we have? We have 14% office work. I could see that. 18% is where you said they work in the office and at home, and I could see how that could be toxic. Because you can make it toxic as well.
You can.
And we're gonna talk about that. 20% is manual labor, and then you have 22% that work in the office in person, and then you have customer servant, client, like you said, patient, 26%. So overall 19% of all these individuals said that they experience like toxic workplace environment. And so just so y'all know, this poll was actually done in 2023. So it could be even higher because now a lot of people are back in the office. We're forced to come back in the office. And so this poll, so y'all know, was conducted by the Harris poll. And it was among 2,515 employed adults between April 17th and April 27th. Okay. So what is a toxic work environment in your opinion? What do you
Toxic work environment is, in my opinion, is when you're showing favoritism, when you are requesting more from the employees and you're not increasing the pay, but the economy has went up. And a lot of jobs I feel like are unrealistic as far as, like, being a parent. Like, my boss, like, I know you're the CEO, but you have a child, you've had children before. If you don't, then sorry. But like you got to be personable for people's situations. Like, if my child is sick, short notice, and they're running a fever, well, if I take them to school, they're going to send them home. So it's like some jobs don't even accept doctor excuses anymore, or they don't accept that you have to call out or you have to leave work early. It's still an occurrence. And that's a major issue because that's very toxic. You want your employees to be happy, but, employees still have families at the end of the day. Some jobs say, they're family oriented, which I know Chick-fil-A is because they're all, but other jobs claim to be like, for the family and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, no.
Yeah.
So I think that's
pretty much toxic.
Yeah.
So overall, a toxic work environment online says it's defined as a place where negative factors negatively impact the well-being of employees. Okay, being psychological, emotional, or physical. And I see in the comments, Anthony, shout out to Anthony, he said having coworkers that act worse remote than they would at office is another problem. That is interesting.
That is very interesting.
Because I guess they were remote. Like kind of like people be Twitter figures. Behind the computer, they can talk a whole bunch of smack.
Yeah.
But at the office, you're not going to say anything.
Right.
And then he also said those emails and team calls are nasty. Yeah. I've heard that before.
I've heard that.
Like, when like leaders coming off a little bit more aggressive than they would if they were face to face. Yeah. So here is some of the other signs that can create or contribute to a toxic work environment. A sabotaging boss who actually sets you up for failure.
Yes, always make sure if you're dealing with one of those, make sure you're taking notes, you have a paper trail, make sure you cover yourself at all times because, it can get very wicked in the workplace.
Oh my goodness. And then cutthroat working conditions, like you have jealousy of others, like their success and stuff like that. Harassment or discrimination, that's always been a big one.
Yeah.
Let's see, unpredictable schedule.
Yeah, and then also managers or employees sleeping with each other.
That's not really on here. I'm surprised that is not on. Yeah, that one can definitely. So that one may go with the favoritism, kind of under the favoritism, because now that me and you have this relationship, then I'm gonna let you get away with any and everything. But nobody can prove that we're messing around unless you decide.
Right.
Yeah.
But that could also go with sabotage, because if I'm sleeping with my manager and we fall out and I'm talking to somebody new, he can sabotage my career.
Oh my goodness. So it's definitely interesting, but that's why I wanted to take a deep dive into, both of our professional, professional experiences when it comes to toxic work environments, and how instead of blaming everyone else, we kind of take accountability to kind of switch up the situation. But let me ask you, what age were you when you first got your first job?
Okay, when I first got my first job, I was 18. I was right out of high school. I was so
old. I started at 16.
See,
I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to get
I couldn't wait either, but at that time, I was focused on track and field, playing softball, and I was so into my academics because I wanted a job younger, but my family, they were like, no, focus on your academics. You can do that later. But I was like, I need money so I can do what I want to do. Live the lifestyle I want, but I was 18. Right out of high school. My mom kind of really didn't agree with it, but I was like, let me learn a sense of responsibility. I want to be independent. I don't want to have to depend on, my mother or my father for things. I want to feel like an adult, even though I'm a young adult, but I still want to feel like I'm an adult and I'm mature and I'm ready for the real world.
And then let me ask you a question, because as young people, when we do go into these jobs as young people and we have adults that are not like our parents, can you think about, now that you're older and you can look back, being in a toxic work environment where it was toxic because you were young?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. At my current job that I'm at, I'm not gonna drop any names, but I remember I started there at 21 and everybody used to refer to me as 21, but because I was 21, they thought they could talk to me any type of way. Yeah. But nowadays respect me, even though I'm young. That doesn't mean that I'm ignorant or I'm not intelligent. You don't know my work ethic or anything like that, because you don't know my obligations that I have outside of work. So
Yeah.
you don't know how bad I need this job, and you don't know what I'm dealing with mentally outside of work. So, just seeing how but this is my experience, but just seeing how like the people who may have been there like 30 something years or after a certain amount of time, they're making the most amount of money because they've been there, but
Yeah.
they think that because they've been there so long that they can be lazy and they want to put all the work on you. But we're going to spread that work out equally.
Yeah.
You're going to respect me the same way I'm going to respect you, because I will always lead with respect. And if you come at me disrespectful, I'll just control my tone and I'll just say, oh, okay, like, I'll let you have it, but you got to be fair though, because what about, you got to think about if you had a child or a daughter or a son, would you want someone talking to your child like that? So a lot of people, I think, they forget that you're still human at the end of the day. And instead of talking down on younger people, because that's a major issue, encourage them, lift them up, because we are going to be the next future
leaders.
CEOs, the next leaders. And it just, encouragement is really big. Even giving someone their flowers or small acknowledgments really makes a difference.
Yeah, I agree. I can say people tend to, and I guess seasoned people or people who may be in a role longer than, or when you, like you said, you got there and it's your first year or whatever, and you're in your 20s, and you have people that have been employed for 30 years and they, a lot of times they're stuck in their old ways, and this is how, and that's how they talk to their kids. And when you get there, instead of, telling you, okay, this is what you like, showing you what to do, they try to tell you what to do. And there's a difference, right? To me, showing is training and taking the time to, just, showing, not you're going to do this because, and and they're not even leaders. And you say you have a problem. I have a problem. I had a problem as well when I first started working for a company I'm working for, because I don't look my age. Right. And so, and they don't know what your experience is. They don't know where you're coming from, and when I came in, it was an entry level job. So a lot of times when you come in as an entry level job, people already assume, oh, they don't know anything. They don't know. And that is a number one problem when it comes to toxic environment, because one, you don't even know me. And you're already creating this space. And if I'm an individual who doesn't know any better, I'm going to react to that. You know what I'm saying? Right. You're going to get a reaction out of me that's not going to be pleasant. And we've already started our month off horrible, right? We have to work together.
Right.
So that is a big one. So what are some of the unhealthy behaviors that you have experienced? Like, have you experienced any bullying, aggressive leadership, ostracism, anything like that?
I think I've experienced a lot of it based off my age at the time, based off looks, because a lot of people like to bring skin color and complexion into the workplace. That has nothing to do with my work ethic.
Oh, go deeper, because I've never experienced that.
Like,
so, go ahead.
Like,
go ahead.
Okay, so like, there's a person that I was working under. He felt as if I wasn't as qualified for a position to lead others because of my skin color. And keep in mind, me and him are the same skin complexion, but he wanted someone of lighter tone to, take the position. But that person that was,
so he had a type,
lighter
y'all.
tone,
He had a type. He had a type.
He had a type. And the person that was of lighter tone wasn't there the amount of time that I was there. And it was somebody that like, he wanted me to train when they first came in. And I was like, okay, well, that's fine, because at the end of the day, I'm all for helping, other people. But you don't know my qualifications just because I'm working for you, because I could be somebody completely major, but I'm just in this uniform. We all look the same in uniform. Right. But this person came in and he was like, oh, I want this person to do this and this is now. It would look better for the face of our company. And I was like, for the face of our company, like I was so appalled. I was just like, wow, okay, let me see how this played out. Come to find out, the person ended up getting the job, right?
Okay.
The reason why he wanted that person to get the job is because that person was also helping him steal time. And that was
so
he was vouching. They were vouching for each other, like using vacation time that they didn't have, using PPT and all of that. So if someone like me If I would have gotten that position, I would have
you
been
would have
making
held them
sure all of
accountable.
that, I would have
Yeah.
held you accountable and
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
So that was like a big old like problem in the
That
workplace.
happens a lot. And
It does.
that probably can fall under those unfair like practices, like where favoritism, blame culture, like rewarding unethical or harmful like actions, because I've seen a lot where, yeah, like especially if a person is in a leadership position and they may be trying to get something they want from someone that's lower than them,
Right.
they will tend to like turn a blind eye. You know what I'm saying? And also defend this person. But I've had it where not only that, but I've had it where leaders would show favoritism to their leads.
Oh, of course.
Where like their leads couldn't do
no
like,
wrong.
or they're under them, their assistant managers, whoever did no wrong, and no accountability. And I've had one person tell me one time, like basically, no, they don't know. I got their back, and I'm like, and tried to tell me I wasn't anything because I had a problem with this lead. Like I was the one who was causing the problem, like and so it gets tough because like you said, like we come into these jobs thinking, okay, I'm coming, like for instance, I'm getting a job at Kia Motors, right? Because I hear so much about Kia, right? Kia Motors. And I'm like, great opportunity. And I get into this work environment. I'm like, wait a minute. No way. This cannot be Kia Motors.
Right.
Not, disclaimer, I've never worked for Kia Motors. We're just using that example. But you know what I'm saying? Like these brands, like customers will see these brands as one way. And then when you actually get into these spaces, you're like, this cannot be. And so one of the things I also want to talk about is because you come into an environment and you cannot change that environment no matter how much you want to. That's when you have to actually take accountability for yourself and figure out how to navigate this crazy behavior. So one thing I do want to talk about, clickish behavior. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Clickish behavior. Y'all experience that is one of the ones where I'm just like, and clickish behavior is not only I know you, and we're both AKs or we're both Delta, we both went to the same school. It's also, it can also be departments,
Yeah,
like
of course.
certain departments may only want to have, we want our people to look like this.
Right.
Or we only want our people to come from this school. Or we only like, and that's also cliquish. And that creates toxic environments because when you're doing that and you're working for a company, now this is not your own company. This is not your own business. If it's your own business, you can operate how you want. But when you're doing that and you're working for a brand, a company and a brand that is known to be this way for customers, and you have this going on inside, you have to be really careful because you could, like I like to say, the right person can say the wrong thing and it can ruin everything.
It can.
Like, and you have to be really, really careful. Now I get it. You want to be an organization that hires good upstanding citizens, that can carry the brand inside work and outside of work. But you have to also remember that in order to make an organization work, you have to match the customers.
Right.
Your organization has to look just like your customers, because if not, then it's going to be a problem. Then it's going to look like 1950, and we don't want to go into that Project 2025. But we're going to edit that part. We're going to cut that out real quick. So, I mean, there is a lot that can happen really quickly when you come into a workplace. So let me ask you a question. Gossip. Have you ever experienced gossip at the workplace? And how do we define gossip? So
gossip is just so childish. It's so petty. I feel like everybody has experienced gossip in the workplace. Like, that's where I feel like it stems from leadership and management too, because it could start on the floor,
right?
Me and you,
right?
But it can also start up top.
Yeah.
Like if I'm having a situation, with my child and my child is sick and I have to call out for a week or, God forbid anything. And I had that discussion with my manager.
Yeah.
When I come back to work, nobody should know
Exactly.
what's going on the floor.
Exactly.
You know, that should have just been between me and the manager. But a lot of times people want to be seen. They want to act like, they're just important. You just want to talk. But, you have to remember that you're still the face of somebody's company.
Yeah.
Like, you're judging a book by its cover. And then I told my manager, like, hey, this is about my son. I need this and this. And then I come back and it's like, oh, they said you had to take off work because, your son had got in trouble from school. And it's like, what? How did you get there? Like,
that might not even be the true story.
The truth.
But let me ask you a question, because I know, like, I try to, because at the end of the day, like, people are going to talk, because people are going to vent. People are going to always want to vent. And sometimes you vent with the right person, and sometimes you vent with the wrong person. And so that's where I kind of say, well, that's gossip, right? Because I feel like there are situations going on all day at work, right? And so people are going to come and people are going to talk. And I may come to you and say, girl, blah, blah, blah. I think it becomes gossip if I'm adding extra extra lies, right? That's gossip. Or it becomes gossip when you decide to take what I said and go tell somebody else, right?
And put my own spin on it.
Yeah, and put your own spin. Or just tell somebody else when it didn't have anything to do with them, right? And because I feel like there is no way you cannot not talk about people at work, right?
Right. There's no way.
There's no way. There is no way you cannot, unless you're just sitting in your little corner and you just don't interact with anybody, right? But you're going to interact with people. You're going to interact with people at different times in their lives and emotions and all that. You're going to interact with people where you have to accept who they are. Like, nobody's perfect. You're going to interact with people that have all types of personalities.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's natural to have those conversations, but I think to me, it becomes gossip when I decide to take that conversation and go tell somebody else. Now, if I'm talking about myself and dealing with you, I tend to, if I am talking to other people about something that happened between me, I'm venting about me and like, this is what happened and this is how I feel and da da da. Now, when they decide to be like, oh, she's not this and that, that's again when I think it becomes gossip, because like, again, and that's why you have to find people you can trust, because there is no way you could be at work. Who out there is at work and you're not talking to anybody? Put that in the comment.
Be for real now.
Be for real, because we are all talking about people. But I think that becomes gossip, because I had a situation, and this happened a couple of years ago, and where we were talking about people work styles and stuff like that. And you have people that do exceptional work and you have people who don't do work.
Right.
And that is a fact. I always say it's a fact. We know who don't do no work and we know who do work, right? That's all. If you've been in a position for at least a year or 2, 6 months, you're gonna know who does work and who doesn't, right?
Right.
All right. And I'm talking about people who are capable of doing work, not people who, for whatever reason, may have some different type of restrictions, so they can't really do an 8-hour, meet their numbers, meet their metrics like they should. I'm talking about people who take advantage, right?
Right.
So it was a conversation, and like I always say, whatever I tell somebody, and if they hear that I said it, I'm gonna repeat it. Bring them over here.
Right. If I say exactly what I said, I will say exactly what I said. Right.
So it was a situation, and we were talking about the weakest link of the team.
Okay.
And those who know me, I'm gonna let you know if you're a weak link or not, because you more than likely you are, because I'm a hard worker. So anyway,
yeah.
So it's this one person in the conversation, and she was friends with the person. I knew that. I didn't care, because I was stating facts.
Right.
Your friend is a weak link.
Right.
She decides she's going to repeat the conversation, which was fine. But then he comes to me with a whole, somebody said. I said, who is somebody? And I said, where are they at?
Oh, God.
It was a guy. What did you say? I said, no, bring that person who said what I said and bring them to this conversation, so then you know exactly what I said and you know exactly how I feel. No, they're not here. I said, no, they are here, because I was looking right at the person, right? And I made sure she knew, because at that point, sometimes you have to let people know, don't come to me with no mess. right?
Don't.
You're making it mess. If you have a problem with what I said, then you and that person, whoever I had a problem with, y'all bring it to me. We have this conversation. You know why I said what I said. We keep it moving.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But because I'm not talking about you personally, because I don't know, like I don't know who you are personally, you know, because you're not just one of my peoples, you know. I'm judging you based off what you when you come in here 8 hours,
Your work ethic.
your
Yeah.
work ethic, period.
Right.
And that's the discussion we're going to have. Now, this is another thing that creates workplace toxicity. This person that decided they were going to hide behind their hand or whatever, what do y'all call it? When you
Hide their hands or
hide their
something.
hand, throw the
Yeah.
rock and hide your hands.
Yeah.
Decided she was going to speak to me the next day or whatever, or not the next day, when she found out that I was offered a job. She's like, oh, did you? And I looked at her like, first of all, you need to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Don't like, because that creates toxicity as well, like not being holding yourself accountable for the mess you could have caused. Because if I was one of those employees that was like, oh my god, why did you say that, and did it cause all that, then it would have escalated to something. But because I'm not, now you owe me that respect to come to me and apologize before you ask me anything personal about it. Yeah, girl, like, no. And to this day, I have people who have done stuff who think they're, because there's a lapse in time, that all of a sudden we good. No, you have to take accountability, and that's what we can talk about now, taking accountability for some of the parts that you play, or even taking accountability to change your behavior so that you can navigate through all of this toxicity. So go ahead.
Well, just to comment on that, that's where, like you were saying, you got to hold yourself accountable. But if you're going to go repeat something that was said in a conversation, be prepared for that to backfire. Be prepared for what's going to come, you know, with that. And that's a problem for me, because why are you being messy? You know, we're adults. We already graduated high school. We're not coming to work at a high school. We're coming to work to make our money and go home. Like, you know, so that's a major problem in a lot of people's workplaces, because ego, that's where ego comes in, because you can apologize when you're wrong. That's holding yourself accountable. That's being an adult. Everybody claims to be grown, you know, all ages. So if you're grown, then conduct yourself like a grown woman or a grown man. Apologize. And you don't burn bridges you don't need to burn, because you know, everybody's gonna, they can forgive or they may not forgive, but they're never gonna forget. So if you're out here being petty with me and you're spreading lies about me, and then I end up being your manager, then what? Because you're gonna be shook, and it's gonna be like,
be on my team. I'm gonna see your name and be like,
and be like, no off days for you or something, and then it's gonna be, oh, they're
your
picking on
resume
me.
gonna be like, no, next,
right? And then, you know, they're gonna be like, oh, you know, Marquia was picking on me. No, Marquia's not picking on you. You're just fearing that conversation you had with another employee is going to come back and bite you. So now you're paranoid. Just be grown.
Yeah, I had a situation like that where I had to take accountability. And I spoke about this in one of my previous lives. There was a situation where there were changes that were supposedly going to be made without like including me, you know, a team member. And I kind of felt some type of way, because I was like, first of all, I don't mind changes, but this was kind of like an unnecessary change, right? And I kind of wanted to know why it was being changed, instead of you just telling me, oh, this is happening because I said so. That's kind of how it was. And so, you know, once I spoke to upper management about it, they were like, okay, the change won't happen, you know, everything's going to stay the same. I held a grudge, and I held a grudge for a very long time. It was like, it had to be about a month. And it was and I kept fighting myself, because the whole dynamic of the team kind of changed, right? Everybody was kind of walking on pins and needles, because I was over there like, you know, I'm bubbly and happy, and all of a sudden I'm like, don't talk to me. And I fought with myself, because I was like I was fighting with myself, because I was like, no, I need to teach them a lesson. And I was like, no, you don't need to teach them a lesson. It's been squashed. Like, so I literally was fighting with myself, and I actually learned, because one of my managers, he was like, we need to have a talk, conflict, because this is conflict resolution. And I was like, bump that. Like, no, like, you cross me, I'm a Sagittarius. I don't do nothing to nobody. As soon as you do something to me, it's over. But I was internally fighting with that because I felt really bad because here I am acting this way towards people that didn't deserve that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so that was one of the hardest things. Taking accountability can be very, very hard, but
It
it's
is.
rewarding
It's
because you get
rewarding.
this, you get like a boulder lifted off your shoulder. So we had our meeting. I even had to call the meeting because months had gone by, right? And I was like, oh my God, like what? So we had the meeting and I simply went in there and I said, I apologize because I'm holding a grudge against you. You're not a bad leader. You're not a bad person. And I should have just let it. I should have just like, oh, I don't have the changes. Is nothing happening. Just keep it moving.
Right.
But once I apologized and let that person know, like, you're not the problem. I'm the problem. I need to still work on myself. It felt so good. And when I tell you, like, our relationship is like so good now, but it was all about taking accountability. And I think a lot of times, and I'm not even a leader, but that was a leadership skill. You know what I'm
That
saying?
was.
And so I think at sometimes leaders get comfortable with really just being stuck in their ways and not realizing like you can have a better operation if you just take accountability for something. And I'm not saying take accountability for people behaving like it's not your fault because somebody wants to come to work and they don't want to work, right?
Right.
However, it can be your fault if you do not guide that employee to do better, to understand like you come here to work, you don't come here to just shoot the shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. Have you ever been able to resolve any of your situations at work or kind of like my situation? Have you been able to ever resolve? Because you won't be able to resolve all of them, obviously.
Right.
But are there any examples where you've been able to resolve any situations?
You know, I've been able to resolve my situations, but that's where it comes for like me putting my pride to the side because I'm a very prideful person and I do hold myself accountable. But like a lot of times people think if you apologize or you try to make right your wrongs that it makes you look weak
Yeah.
or something like that, but that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's about growth within the company, growth within yourself. That's why I was saying, my walk with God. I've been asking him to show me where I'm wrong in situations so I can take a step back and see, let me analyze myself. Self-assurance is like the best, but you need to be self-aware. You need to know that, a lot of the things that we're saying because we're mad, it may not be the best way to handle things. And kind of like how you say, like, you held a grudge. Like I can walk around and not talk to nobody. Yeah, I'm a Sagittarius. Like, and we're very personable people. We're very upbeat people. We have a good personality. We're smiling. We're happy. So for you to really get me out of character and take me out of my element and I'm walking around with the attitude and you're not getting the same response, I mean, they don't care because, the work is going to be done. But I feel some type of way. Like that would make me feel some type of way because for one, why do I feel like I was wrong, and I was fighting for something that was right. So that's why I've been asking God, like, show me so that way I can correct myself and not let, everybody at work see and know that it's getting to me. So, like the whole, situations like where, something's not fair and like, okay, me and this person, we went to break at the same time, but I came back, in 30 minutes and they can come back 45 minutes to an hour and they get a pass. But it's like the minute you speak up about things that are unfair, you become labeled as the problem, right? And everybody's looking at you like you're the problem person when you're not. You're just speaking up for what's right. But then once it starts getting to management, it starts getting messy. And it's like, all I did was speak up. Like, we have cameras.
Yeah.
But y'all don't want to look at the cameras. And then when y'all do look at the cameras, oh, we can't hear what was said. You can hear what was said.
Because you know why? It's a lot easier to discipline the person who does everything right than it is to discipline the person who's going to talk back, right?
Right, the blame game.
Yeah, because the person who's going to do right is going to be like, okay, I understand and I won't do it again. And then it's over with.
Right.
The person who doesn't want to be blamed will be like, well, such and such do such and such. And, then it becomes a problem. And that's where I feel like, and this is a whole nother topic about leadership, but that's where I feel like that's when you have a weak leadership.
Correct.
Pretty much. That's, we just want to call it what it is. It's a weak leadership. It's a weak mindset. It's operating off a low vibration because you rather just not deal with it instead of showing an example where you reward your good employees and you discipline those that aren't. So then you do set this expectation that you come in here and you do a great job. This is what you get. Not you come in here and do a piss poor job. And this is what you get. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, it's I was just looking at the comments and somebody said, Anthony said, I lost a position for dressing better than the person that recruited me. They want to be number one so bad. Girl.
Ooh. Okay.
We could talk about that. We could talk about that because that is something that, once again, you can't help who you are. You can't help what you look like. You can't help how you dress. You can't help how, like, especially if you're a type of person who that you take pride in yourself. If I take pride in myself, you cannot get mad. You know, when I moved from working in logistics, I was working in logistics in the warehouse, and then I moved to acute. Everybody knows me, knows that I love to dress, period. Okay. So this was just my opportunity to just pull out the clothes out of my closet. Right. And just do. And, you know, thank God I work with a whole bunch of men because I can imagine what it would have been like to work with females. Because the men were kind of like, because at first they was like, okay, she knew and then on Fridays I'm still kind of doing my thing. They like, you know, you don't have to dress up on Friday. I was like, and I finally told them, I was like, yo, this is me. Like, I love clothes. And they're used to it. But I noticed that there would be some women, because where I work at, it's not mandatory that, like, unless you're, you know, a manager, general manager on up, it's mandatory that you dress up every day, even on Fridays, right? And not suit and tie, but slacks, casual, business casual on Friday. So, but I noticed that I would just get like these looks, like that look. And I'm like, you know, you can't help who you are. And I just feel like for a while, even before this particular job, I would kind of like tone it down to make other people feel comfortable. I did that for a very long time to make other people feel comfortable. And then finally I told myself, man, I ain't got time. Like, I can't, you cannot. Shout out to Anthony. Like, some people are perfect number twos. Everybody can't be number one, but I'm not even coming here to be number one. I'm not even coming here. Now, maybe if we're trying to get the same job, that's a competition. But I guarantee you what's on my vision board is not on your vision board. There may be some similarities. You know, because we're females. But I guarantee you, I don't want what you want. And I do find that that's another toxic thing that it's at the job I'm at now, because you have gatekeepers. You know what I'm saying? You have people that don't want you to do anything. And if they see your name, people have hated on me because of my name. Oh, Stacey Michelle. Oh, Stacey Michelle. Me, bitch. I'm just playing. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they don't even know the story behind that. You know what I'm saying? And I could share the story on that. I changed my name to Stacey Michelle. That's who Stacey Michelle is. And I've had the name for a very, very long time. For many years, I legally changed it. Does that make you feel better? You know what I'm saying? So it's just different things. But those individuals do operate off a low vibration. And so now we can talk about, like you said, taking accountability. And you're working on your closer walk with God. So have you had a moment where you're like, ooh, this is me. Let me change my attitude. And has it been at work yet, or has it just been in general?
It's at work though. Like, because, you know, like, I've worked in logistics myself, and being in logistics, honestly, I've had, you know, a couple of different jobs, but the most recent one, all you got to do is just know the work to become a leader. You don't have to have people skills. So, you know, even though you know the work, you don't have to talk to people like a dog. You don't have to, you know, disrespect them and stuff like that. And I'm not somebody who tolerates disrespect, because I'm going to say something back. But during this walk, God has been showing me sometimes just be quiet. Just let them think they have the upper hand. Let them think that
that's good.
you know what they're saying is right, because in due time it'll all come out and they will see where they're wrong.
Good.
But learn to control your tongue, because your tongue can be very powerful and it can make or break your job career. So
Yes, that's true.
I've experienced a lot of that, and it's just like, oh my, like if I just, you know, if I just say this, but then it's like I'm saying this, but I'm still gonna be in the same position.
Yeah, that's true.
So you just got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them,
Yeah.
and know when to walk away. Like you just got to know when to be quiet, when to speak up, and just know when to turn the other way.
How do you handle when somebody did you wrong and then the next day they want to be like, hey, good morning?
You
Do you
know,
respond? Have you? I haven't gotten there yet.
you know,
Do I respond? Have you gotten there yet? Because I'm just like, who are you talking to?
You know,
like,
I have a resting face.
Okay.
And you know, you're gonna know if I don't like you.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to control that, because you'll be talking to me and I'm just gonna be looking at you like,
and these are people that
what
did
is
you
it?
wrong.
Yeah, like why are you in my face? Like a couple weeks ago, you wanted to have the upper hand and you wanted to disrespect me and dog me out, knowing that you were wrong. And so that's why I be asking God, like, please help me control my face.
Help you, because sometimes you're thinking like, yes, God, I'm coming here being this great person, but why am I dealing with this if I'm not creating that type of space, right? Why? And one thing I have learned is that love is attractive, if that makes sense.
It
like
is.
almost like light. Like as soon as you turn the light on, darkness escapes.
Right.
So all of that, what you're attracting, you're going to attract all that negative energy, because some people are looking for that. They don't realize they're looking for love, but they're something about you is like, and the only thing they can give you, because the only thing that they taught themselves, because they haven't reprogrammed themselves, is to give you that negative energy, when really they want to be like, you're so nice. Can you show me something? Can you show me how to be like you? Can you show me? Can you offer? Instead, they want to be like, she done, because they haven't gotten there yet. And so, but I don't, I feel like it's not my job to tell that person to check themselves. I feel like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like it's everybody's own individual job to look in that mirror and figure out what is wrong with me and how can I be a better person. Because
and then, not to cut you off, but when you're in those situations, you should be asking God, or you know, whomever you pray to, or whoever, you know, religious wise, what is the lesson? What is the purpose of this? What am I supposed to be learning? Like, how is this going to elevate me? Why am I going through this? Because, you know, a lot of times we find ourselves questioning, like, well, if I'm not doing nothing, why is all this negativity? Why is all this hate coming my way, when all I'm, you know, putting out into the universe is love and positivity? And, you know, and it's like, why am I getting back just like some like really bad, like horrible, dark things? And, you know, if you can check yourself and take a look at yourself and just take a step back and analyze the situations. And sometimes when you're in them, you're just reacting, but self-reflect at the end of the day, like when you get home. Because like a lot of times I'm going into work, I know I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm rehearsing that in the car. And then when they say something and I'm like, I didn't rehearse that. Like, wait, let me be quick on my feet. Let me think of something. So it's like, if you can rehearse and you can be quick on your feet and think in these situations, then that's where mental maturity and growth comes from. Like, you got to learn from your mistakes. You can't keep walking down the same path and expecting the grass to be green over here. No.
It's an everyday, like people say you have to heal before you can move on to a relationship. I feel like you every day you're healing, because just like your body, when you rest, your body is healing. I feel like every day you're healing. Every day you have to check yourself. It's not a just, oh, I'm healed, and because then you're going to be triggered.
Right. You got to know your triggers.
Right. But I feel like if every day you are purposely working on yourself and taking that moment, like a pause before you react, then that just, it prepares you for whatever, you know what I'm saying? It prepares you for when somebody cuts you off, you're like, no big deal. Instead of, hey, you cut me off, you know what I'm saying? Or, why you didn't do this? Why you didn't do that? Because we also have to be careful what we speak in negativity, because while we could be working on ourselves, if somebody pisses us off and we go to spewing all these negative stuff, then we're going to attract more negativity, right? Instead of saying, I don't know what they're dealing with, God, or whatever they're dealing with, but they'll be all right.
Yeah.
Like just give them, show some love, I guess. But it's definitely hard in the workplace. I can say I'm in a better situation because when I was in logistics, you have so many personalities.
Right.
You have so many people that you have to deal with, and you don't know who to trust. Who can you trust? And you, especially when you're coming in a new environment, and certain people telling you don't mess with this person, and certain people don't mess
Right.
with that person. And then
Opinions.
you realize the person that told you don't mess with this person is the person you shouldn't be messing with. And then now you're like judging everybody because you don't know who to trust, and you should be trusting this person. So it definitely gets crazy and makes it more toxic. But let's talk about like some of the ways, or I do want to share this. Let me share this with y'all really quick so y'all can see some of the signs of a toxic professional workplace. And we've probably already talked about it, but of course, unhealthy behavior, poor communication when there's no true black and white. It's one way for one person and one way for this person. Unfair practices, again, showing favoritism, gossip, and other factors that also into play. I just wanted to show that with y'all. But let's talk about, if we shall, what are some tips to help us navigate the workplace? Like, especially when we talk about like taking accountability. So, I mean, do you have any tips that you want to share, that, or at least one or two or something?
You definitely have to set boundaries.
Okay.
Boundaries is like number one at all times.
Okay.
But also learn when to walk away. Like, just because we're having an argument, we're having a disagreement, I don't have to respond right then and there.
Right.
Learn, normalize, hey, you know what? I don't like how this conversation is going. Let's revisit this, in a couple minutes or something. Let's gather our thoughts and let's come back and let's see if we can have a better approach. And then don't get consumed in the workplace gossip. Don't get consumed in the cliques. Don't be one of those. Be a leader and don't be a follower. Don't be one of those people because I know everybody doesn't like Stacey Michelle. I'm going to be over here with the clique that don't like her. Be neutral with everybody. Don't have an opinion. Don't do the he say, she say. Keep to yourself. If you find yourself getting, wrapped up in all of that, bring a book to work. Do something.
That's a good one. So that's one of them that I had listed, and it's take your lunch breaks elsewhere.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Normalize.
And that's good too.
Peace.
Anyway, to switch up, like don't eat at your desk or don't eat in the same place you always eat, and then find other places to find. But one thing I noticed about when you are a good person and you have that good energy, people tend to find you. Like you wanna be in peace, and somebody come find you for whatever reason. And I always tell myself, okay, this person is coming to talk for a reason. And usually when I do see them, like when I saw you, I happened to see you that one day, and you saw me, I was in my own little world thinking about something. He was like, Stacey. And I heard somebody calling my name, but I was so zoned out. And then you're like, Stacey. And I was like, okay. And then we talked, and then here we are today.
Right.
So,
here we are. Right.
I always tell myself, just take a moment. And then I always have to tell myself, okay, learn how to cut it off, because I can end up talking to folks for like hours.
I'm trying to tell you, like we've known each other for years.
Definitely,
right.
I definitely do believe take your lunch break elsewhere. That's just healthy anyway, to get up from, and also take lunch break. And also you said something about set boundaries, and you said something and you probably said this. I'm working the board, y'all. I'm working the board. Be slow to make friends. Which is a good one. Because I feel like when you are coming into a new environment, take your time to get to know people.
Right.
Because people, again, if you're coming in as a good person, you got this high energy, you got this glow about you, because just you're new. You're
right.
new. You're like, I'm here. I got a job. I got flights. I got benefits. Haha.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? People will gravitate to that because, again, it's love, it's light. And so just take your time, because you're going to get overwhelmed. People are going to tell you stuff that you don't even want to know about.
Yes.
And it's best to, like you said, set your boundaries when you first get there, and be slow to make friends. And also, here's a good one. You said, don't get involved in the drama. which is the gossip.
Right.
Don't get
Ooh,
involved in
keep
drama,
that at a
which
minimum.
is, yeah.
Keep the personal, but
It's hard.
it's
though,
hard though,
sometimes.
because some stuff do be juicy, and I'll be like, ooh, I'm
Why you
listening,
show
but
me
I'm
that?
not, like,
Right.
but kind of like it's okay because you're not gonna always keep everything work. It's okay to have those conversations, but it's the information. It's how you handle the
Now
information
you
after
said
the
that,
conversation.
I do be gossiping.
I mean, I think we all do. We're human, though.
But it be stuff that is relevant. Like if somebody lost their job, right?
We gonna talk about
Yeah,
that.
we're gonna talk about that, right?
Ooh,
Or if
let me
somebody lost their
know.
job and you don't know, and then that one person comes around and be like, oh, so but then they I've been in some gossip before. I be in gossip, but I feel like and I shouldn't put the word but in it. However, I feel gossip can be healthy in a way, and in a way because the reason why I say this is because it helps you get to know people, and it helps to get to know who I should trust or not,
And who you should,
like, and
right.
who I should tell my business to,
Right.
Because there are some people that are gossip, and I'm not ever telling them nothing ever.
Not about myself.
And then there are some people you can gossip with, and you make joke of some situation, like not making jokes of an individual,
right,
but you just make joke of like, man, this place is toxic, but it's not really
right.
toxic.
Right.
I can say that in the space I'm in now.
Right.
Before, gossip was gossip.
Right. That
gossip
part.
was gossip before. Now I feel like it's mature. I don't know if there's a difference between mature gossip and high school gossip.
Right.
But I feel like there's adult gossip, and then there's like high school gossip.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. For sure.
But another one you said, I think you said that stay focused on your goals. I do like that one. And I'll show this one, stay focused on your goals, because if you do have goals, you really don't have time to be participating in a lot of just drama. And then people don't like that either.
Yeah, they don't like they don't like that when they see you trying to elevate and better your education and gain more knowledge and stuff like that. They have a problem with that too, but I'm doing it. You can do it. You're never too old.
Yeah.
Age isn't nothing but a number, but you're never too old to continue to learn.
Yes.
There's always new ways to learn. We can still get to the same result, but there's different ways to get there. Your way is not always right.
Yeah.
Be open to learning.
Yeah, and I feel like that's one of the things like a lot of leaders lack, is being open to learning. Because as a leader, you should always be learning, because everybody's changing. People have different attitudes. People have like just like the world is rotating, like everything is evolving. And so especially when you got a group of young people that's going to be eventually the leaders, like you want to influence them now on how to be professional, right?
Yes.
And you want to be able to create this environment that shows it's okay to be professional. It's actually fun to be professional. Okay?
It is.
It's actually fun to come to work and people respect you, and they give, like, having respect at work is so much different than coming in and people just talking about you, because they don't talk about you, but you can have that respect, and you come in and they know, oh, when this person is working, I got to do some work, because that's how it was with me. They knew, like, oh, Stacey work, we gonna have to work.
Yeah, we got to work today,
and it's nothing wrong with working. Because if I walk into a room as a leader and I see a whole bunch of stuff just everywhere, and we could be busy as we could have been working all day, but if I see a whole bunch, I'm gonna be like, what did y'all do all day? But if I walk into a room and stuff is put away, like my son, prime example, if I walk into his room and it's clean and he on the phone or the kitchen clean, and I'm not tripping. I'm like, not tripping. Do you? But if I walk in the house and stuff is everywhere, I'm gonna be like, what you been doing? And he could have been like, I was doing this and I got and I'm still fussing because this is what I walk into. And so I think there is a way to make professionalism fun. It should be fun to get up in the morning and know I'm going to get up. And even if I am putting on I'm putting on this uniform proud. I'm putting on this uniform because I got these benefits. I'm putting on this uniform because I work for a company that people love
and want to work
for. Because
the
thing about it, outside, if you have that uniform on and people see that, they're going to be like, oh my God,
you work there?
Oh my God. And they're going to give you the red carpet. And I feel like that is the same, just like when you expect a certain type of professionalism at Chick-fil-A and Amazon better have my order. you
Right.
should give that same back to the company you work for, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
And
definitely stay focused on your goal.
just to comment on what you said about being a leader, just advice for, anybody that's watching. Um if you're a leader, look at yourself. If you don't feel like you can promote everybody in your department to take your position or take a position higher, then you're not doing something right, because you as a leader should be grooming the next set of leaders. You should always make sure you're leading by example. It's okay to be a leader and get out on the floor and help learn your people, learn your employees, because learn their work style. If I know Stacy likes to work like this, I may not put Jack over there with Stacy, because that's going to throw Stacy off. Learn how everybody works with with each other. Learn your people so you can find little bitty things that will encourage the whole team, that will make them want to come to work and be happy, instead of them coming to work and dreading and, oh, this is another day I'm working just to get a paycheck. Because a lot of times you spend more time with your work people than you do at home.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. That's definitely true.
So you want to come to work and be happy and be comfortable and feel supported. And you don't want to, and when you come to work, you should be forgetting about what you're dealing with outside of work, unless it's with, something important with your children and stuff like that. But you come to work to earn a paycheck, but you also come to work to learn.
Yeah.
And to grow.
Because I feel like it's always something to learn. And it may not be something you learn in that one particular space that you're in. If you're coming to work and you have goals, then you're working on meeting mentors, you're networking, you're doing things that, first of all, you're going to be excited to come to work, because you're like, okay, who's the next person? Or I get to see my mentor, or I get to work on this, I get to work on that, so definitely I stay focused, y'all, because if you focus on your goals, you're not really focused on anything else. Here's another one I like. Let's see if I can show it. I got a number, but we are so not going in order. But have an after work ritual to raise your vibes. So I think what this meant is have when you leave work, maybe you might go to happy hour with somebody, or maybe when you get home you might do yoga, or maybe you might work out. But I think it's definitely great to leave work at work.
Right. Learn how to de-stress.
Yeah. Leave work at work. And don't bring, that home. Let's see. I have another one for y'all. Let's see. Stick with a few trustworthy coworkers. And this is really great if you take the time to figure out who's who. Because sometimes you can be friends with somebody for a while, and then a year or two, then you realize we're not really, this is not going where I want it to go. However, I feel like if they were still trustworthy, then whatever you had with that person, whatever secrets or whatever, it wouldn't leave your space. And I'm guilty of that. I've had a situation where I was not as loyal as I should, because I feel like loyalty is one of those things where loyalty to me is when we stop talking, I don't badmouth you no matter what happens. That's loyalty. Loyalty is not I'm sticking by you ride or die. That is loyalty, but I feel like true loyalty is we may not be talking no more, but I'm not about to go celebrity smuck you and spill all your gossip. And I feel like I've been guilty of that. And that was recent. I wouldn't say recently. I've been guilty of that, and I had to check myself but then I was like, that person told everybody else anyway. So,
but it's like,
but still, I had to tell myself, don't do that, Stacey.
Yeah.
Because even though they may have told their own business, that's still not your place to be like this person. Even though you may not be tied to this person anyway. So I still work on myself, but definitely stick with a few. And then I really like this. I'm going to take these numbers off. This is why, y'all, I'm working the board, but we got it. Don't compromise your values.
Don't.
Ooh, sometimes it be hard.
It
was hard when I was young. When I was young, y'all, I probably would be CEO of a company right now, because I probably would have done some things that have done a little this and that to get what I want, and be driving in a Mercedes truck right now, living in a condo, looking Buckhead. But shout out to my mama and my dad. I don't know if she's watching, but taught me to never compromise my values, because it is not worth it. Why did we go blank? Oh no, y'all can still hear us though. So I don't know what's going on, but
Is
we
it
about to figure
storming?
out what's going. I don't know. Y'all bear with us. We're gonna add something to the stage so y'all can look at something pretty. Okay. Don't compromise your values. So we're gonna keep it going. Here's another one. Engage in regular stress coping techniques. Um, so I guess an example of this, engage in regular techniques, would be like, again, meditation, yoga. I know some companies offer very good mental health
Mm-hmm.
options. I
Yep.
know
EAP.
our job offers meditation. We can go to the gym for free. We
We
have gyms
can.
on campus. They also have where we can call and get 6 free sessions if we need to talk to mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So those are definitely good things to handle um, chronic stress. What else we got? What else do we say? Don't get
Well,
invited. Go
and
ahead.
then just to comment on that, normalize going to counseling.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that, if you're going to counseling, you're weak, or, there's something wrong with you, you're mentally ill. But sometimes it feels good to go and sit in front of someone who doesn't know you and vent and just get everything off your chest. And they may or may not be judging you, but you don't see that judgment on their face. You're not walking out of counseling feeling like, wow, this person is judging me. Or just learn how to release things and let situations. Are they gonna just, I was thinking the worst. I was psyching myself out. But when I went and sat in front of them, just the vibes that you get when you walk in there, just the fact that you have somebody that's on your side, somebody that will talk with you, somebody who will let you vent and get everything off your chest, you just feel so much better, because at the end of the day, this person isn't someone in my family. This person isn't someone I work with. So I'm not worried or concerned about what I'm sharing, getting back to, my peers on my job, or getting back to the rest of my family. I loved it. And they may have you do a worksheet or two, or do an exercise or something, but it really engages your brain. It helps you think outside of the box. You're thinking about the effects of what you're saying, um in these situations, versus just reacting. Like, you're thinking about, how can I conduct myself in a situation that may be, degrading to myself,
Mm-hmm.
but still sound educated, and still, not ruin my image as a person. So I loved it, and I recommend it to anybody, because you can go
I
to
do
counseling for
recommend it.
all types of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. And that's one thing I can say is really great about the company we work for. Because even though it can be a toxic workplace environment, taking accountability is doing things like that, like going to counseling, checking yourself, you know, making sure your walk with God is there. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And waking up in the morning saying, I'm gonna have a great day. Even eating better foods, because sometimes when you eat certain foods,
Yep.
that can also cause you to like just be this ugly person. And so we're gonna wrap up, because before we lose anything else, I appreciate y'all hanging out with us during that moment of, I'm gonna get that team together, we're gonna get that team together.
Right. We
I don't
got to
know
get
what
it
happened, I
together,
don't know what happened, I don't know if stuff is running hot, but um again, you all, I challenge everybody, if you have watched this, if you know somebody needs to watch this, to really think about think about their toxic workplace environment, because I know it's probably there, right?
Right.
And then think about some of the things, maybe take a list of what's recognize what is toxic about this environment. You can
Right.
write down in privacy, if nobody has to know that you're doing this. Write down who's toxic and maybe why, and then take
Mm-hmm.
accountability and ask yourself, what am I contributing to this? Or take accountability, do I need to go to counseling? Taking accountability, saying, how can I work on not letting this affect me? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And also work on goals to, like we said, plan your exit. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's not going to be easy unless your values, unless you want to compromise your values. You know what I'm saying? But it's not going to be easy.
It's
And then
not.
realize sometimes an exit may be what you need, because
Right.
those situations do become uncomfortable you to do better. Again, before we leave, I also want to share with y'all a really good book. See if I can add this. People Can't Drive You Crazy If You Don't Give Them the Keys by Dr. Mike Bullock. I think I'm saying that right. Betchlu. Sorry, y'all. Amazon actually gave this a rating 4 out of 5. I actually have this book. This book is really great. I don't know why the words look like that. I apologize. But a couple of people from Amazon, one person said, amazing book, How to Heal Your Life, put yourself out of the misery and deal with the crazy people in our lives. Another person who bought the book said, teach how to maintain our peace. And another Amazon customer said, great, easy to read, and practical. And one thing I like about this book, again, people can't drive you crazy if you don't give them the keys. I actually have the book right here. Very easy book to read. I mean, and funny. Okay. It basically is saying there's always going to be that one person that drives you crazy. That person is going to hijack your emotions and make you feel crazy.
Right.
And it could be that person that lives off of drama. And then we tell ourselves, man, if I could just fix that person, if they could just, everything will be okay. But of course, we can't fix other people, right? But we can only make choices about ourselves. And I love this book because it is talking about taking accountability. It is straight to the point. This book is really easy to read. And it teaches us, like, we don't have to be victims to crazy people, right? We don't have to be victims. It's just common sense, wisdom, and advice that can be implemented immediately. And it's a really great book. It is worth the buy on Amazon. Again, it is easy to read, and it's helped me because I got this book during COVID. And when I went back to work, I was like, oh my God. But I remember this book and I took it back off the shelf and I read it. And once my attitude got better at work, because I was dealing with, the toxicity, things started to happen. And then I was able to get a promotion. So I can definitely say worth the read, y'all. Again, y'all, Markia, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Joining me and sharing your professional experience in toxicity in the workplace.
Yes.
I know things are getting better for you. So
it is, and I love it. I'm so happy.
I'm happy for you. And you guys, thank you all, you beautiful, wonderful people, for joining and sticking and hanging out with me. Even through the technical difficulties, we figured out. I appreciate y'all all. Make sure y'all like, follow, comment, do whatever, just to help me. And until next time, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
We will talk to y'all later. Bye.
Lipstick poppin', lipstick poppin'. Lot of shit 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 poppin', lipstick poppin'.